Hello, it's Paula, and this is the Common Book Show. And I'm here today with Nessa.
That's not Nessa. That is.
No, that you with Richard. Okay, go
It's
ahead.
usually Richard
Oh, you
first.
had to. You don't. I am
pecking
not.
order was
and
changed.
Jason, and of course I thought I saw James there someplace. Hello, James.
He's the cosmic
How
space
are you?
power.
Hello, Paula.
Cosmic. You know, you never sent me. You never sent me that list of places where you were going to be singing. You were supposed to send that to me.
Karaoke.
Karaoke.
And since today is Saturday, there's no point in telling you anything about tonight.
No, that's true. Oh, you didn't do it all week? Okay. You've got a pass then. All right. So I am reading Gulliver's Travels, and it is written by Jonathan Swift, who is a
Taylor Swift's father?
A satir, well, great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Of Taylor Swift?
Yeah. So it was written in
Cool.
1726. So I don't read anything after 1900 anymore. This is my
Neither
new
does
thing.
Trump.
So-
Unless it's Mein Kampf, I
No,
guess.
you have to be able to read.
Oh, you're right. He can't read.
So
Who reads Mein Kampf to him then? That's his favorite book. Someone has to be reading
his
it to
mother
him.
probably read it to him. Well, okay, listen. All right, I'm going to read this now. So this is from Gulliver's Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World by Jonathan Swift.
Lemuel Gulliver.
1726. This is from part 2, A Voyage to Brobdingnag. It's a place where all the people are very, very large. It's not the
Yeah.
place where he gets tied up because they're small. This is a very, very large people.
McDonald's?
Brobdingnaginan.
So what the king had asked of Gulliver is to explain all about England and what it's about and all the customs and all the laws and things like that. And he wanted to know every single detail of English life. So Jonathan's Gulliver, the character, goes through everything he can think of, but he leaves some things out that he thinks are embarrassing. So he only gives the stuff that's only the facts, ma'am. But His Majesty still thinks about this, and this is how Jonathan Swift was able to talk about the politics by putting it in the mouth of this fictional character, this king, who was responding to what Gulliver said. Okay, so His Majesty and another audience was at pains to recapitulate the sum of all I had spoken, compared the questions he made with the answers I had given, then, taking me into his hands and stroking me gently, delivered himself in these words, which I shall never forget, nor the manner he spoke them in. My little friend Gildridge, you have made a most admirable panegyric upon the country. You have clearly proved that ignorance, idleness, and vice are the proper ingredients for qualifying as a legislator. That laws are best explained, interpreted, and applied by those whose interest and abilities lie in perverting, confounding, and eluding them. I observe among you some lines of an institution which, in its original, might have been tolerable, but these half erased and the rest wholly blurred and blotted by corruptions. It does not appear, from all you have said, how any one perfection is required toward the procurement of any one station among you, much less that men are ennobled on account of their virtue, that priests are advanced for their piety or learning, soldiers for their conduct or valor, judges for their integrity, senators for their love of their country, or counselors for their wisdom. As for yourself, continued the king, you have spent the greatest part of your life in traveling. I am very well disposed to hope that you may hitherto have escaped many vices of your country. But by what I have gathered from your own relations and the answers I have with much pains wrung and extorted from you, I cannot but conclude the bulk of your natives to be the most pernicious race of little odious vermin that nature ever suffered to crawl upon the surface of the earth. So this is in 1726, when it's probably not in good taste to satirize the king, and
Elvis.
to make statements like this out of your own voice. Could he have written a thesis like this and said all these things about the English government? No. So he couches it in a character who is criticizing England, and then he goes back and he says, I don't agree with him at all. I was so insulted that he would say such things about my homeland and my England. And he so he erases his part, the author's part in these criticisms. I love that.
When Gulliver described his land to the king,
Yes.
did he describe it in terms of what it should be or what it is?
He described it as what it is, and he didn't really, because all of that is in the book. It's a long section. He talked about how the king would ask, does money ever exchange hands for favors? And Gulliver would say, well, it's not the custom and it's not really what we should do, but sometimes that happens. So. He was as honest as he could be without being critical in that voice. But what the king got out of it was this. These people are corrupt and dirty individuals. So I'm getting a big kick out of this book. Even, oh my God, the narrator here. I'll play you just a second of this narrator. He's got this nasally.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Well, not like that kind of nasally. Here,
That vibration makes I'm going to sneeze soon.
here, I'll just play you just a second.
Nasally like Axl Rose.
Well, here, I don't know.
Perry Farrell.
Maybe I'm not pronouncing. I mean, here.
Which would certainly have been a most astonishing object, worthy to have the description of it transmitted to future ages.
Kind of snooty. A snooty British accent, with a drawl, very affected, which is perfect for this book. But anyway, that's my new old reading.
Oh.
I'm living prior to the 1900s.
So you're not
Most
going to
of
read
the
any O. Henry?
country.
Oh, I've read a lot of O. Henry, but now to keep my brain
The candy
sane,
bar?
No, O.
They
Henry.
still make that? The O. Henry candy bar? I don't see that in ages.
I haven't seen one in a long time.
What about who did Reading Jail? Oscar Wilde. What about Oscar Wilde?
Oscar Wilde.
What about F. Scott Fitzgerald?
Yeah, there.
No, let's go with Oscar
I've
Wilde.
read of those things. It's not that I haven't read them and I'm not going to read them. It's just that right now I'm trying to keep my head out of this century.
What about Dos Passos or Sinclair Lewis?
Like I said, I've read them, but I don't think I've read any Sinclair Lewis. Come to think of it, he wrote the Jungle.
No, that was Upton Sinclair.
Oh, okay. I get those two names mixed up all the time.
Sinclair Lewis wrote Aerosmith.
What, fan mail?
I don't think I read that either.
Well, just as 10 seconds, Aerosmith is fundamentally about medicine. That you have Martin Aerosmith, who's the brain. There's Angus Dewar, who's the surgeon. He's the hands. And Fatty Pfaff, who's the worst doctor by far, but everybody loves him. He's the heart. So that's one of the microcosms. But Aerosmith is about him being a researcher and his life's and
Oh,
foibles.
that sounds interesting. I might read that.
Yeah,
When was it
I
written?
liked it.
Was it written before 1900?
No, that's the whole
no,
point.
I know. I'm making a joke.
Well, back in 100 years ago, 105 years ago, who was it? Was it Rockefeller commissioned to see who or what was the right way to do medicine? And it was competing between allopathic and homeopathic. And allopathic won. But we could have just as soon been with the homeopathy, which does nothing. That the tincture of the thing that sickens you, take a small amount and it will heal you. Homeopathic doses are like if you put one grain of sugar in your coffee, not a spoonful or a cube, but 1 grain.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to talk about it intelligently, but I do know people who feel strongly that it's their kind of medicine. You know what I mean?
Well, and Upton Sinclair did The Jungle, and the thing about it is the rest of the book is all there, but people think about the 3 chapters that are about making sausage. And it's really, that was one of the things that came to about food safety, because it really wasn't food safety. Like if you found a rat.
Well, that was instrumental. That book was instrumental. And
because if you found a rat, you just threw the rat in.
Yeah.
I mean, it would get
meat.
macerated.
But now we don't have a food safety department anymore.
Well,
they're all been fired.
There are
As long as there's still Big Macs available.
I'm just glad. I think at this time in history, I'm glad I'm not eating meat.
So that was my aside. So do you have a list, Richard?
Well, I'd like to talk about Gulliver's thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
So Gulliver talked about what is, but not what it should be.
Pretty much.
There's a nice quote by Lenny Bruce.
Okay.
Without profanity?
What should be never did exist, but people keep trying to live up to it. In truth, there is no what should be, there is only what is.
Yeah, because we're human. Human beings are complicated animals.
That was
Some
why.
are.
So he said, if you look at the reporting on the Kennedy assassination, you see Jacqueline Kennedy trying to get out of the car. And you see all the reporters saying, she's going to get help. And he said, I didn't see that. I
No.
saw somebody who was scared to shit.
She was panicked.
And was trying to get away.
Absolutely. That's she was,
Wrong.
right.
That's not what happened.
If I was,
We have a conspiracy
okay,
person
go
on the
ahead,
panel
James.
here.
We want to hear your side
This
of
is
this.
not a conspiracy. This
Oh,
is
hi,
her own.
hi, Celeste.
This is her own.
Yeah. Go.
This is her own words. I personally thought she was trying to get out of the car, and the Secret Service was trying to get her back in the car. What happened was, when the back of his head got blown away, she looked back and saw a piece of his skull on the trunk of the car. She got on the trunk of the car, grabbed the piece of his skull, and put it in her pocket.
Not back on his head?
When
No.
they got to the hospital,
Well, that was something
gave
that.
it to the doctor and asked, "Will this help?"
So
How
she
big was it, the
She had she was interviewed, and that's what she said about that incident. Because you're saying that she said this, right?
She said that. The doctor told the story.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, well, that's I've never heard that before. That's the first time I've heard that comment. That's great.
Well-
that's an interesting point.
Here's a little coda for that. Do you remember about 10 years ago now, the guy that Dallas police blew up with the bomb? He was he shot some people, and he killed several cops, and then he was holed up, and they ran the robot in there, and they just blew him up. You know where he started his killing spree? On the grassy knoll.
Wow.
Seriously.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously.
What do you mean, seriously?
I'm not kidding. That's not a joke. He started at the grassy knoll.
Well, the grassy knoll is where the gunshot was supposed to have come from that killed Kennedy.
You mean there's still a grassy knoll?
Yeah, the grassy knoll.
they
Yeah,
totally
Yeah, that's
they
what
totally
James
did-
told me. They totally revamped that whole area, right, James?
but
They
how long?
changed
Yeah.
They changed the entire landscaping, so there is no longer the grassy knoll.
But
been
it's there's
changed.
still an area there that where that would have been.
The Dallas police
Yes.
surgeon who knew all those was a guy who finished residency a year ahead of me. And he works for the police still, also being a faculty at UTSW. And there is a grassy knoll there of something. And he can
it's-
show you the map.
Right, it's not. It's no longer what James is saying. That is no longer what it's called. But there's
That's
still
exactly
an area.
what it was called.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Jeff said that's the grassy knoll.
What year?
2015.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
It might be
I
year dependent.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works because I didn't know either way. I didn't remember that particular.
Well,
shoot.
something closer to home. If you remember where Ladder 11 was, right next door was an AM/PM market, and a guy got murdered there on the New Year's Day of 1993. Rochelle was his first name, but the first guy 2 days before, Mike Sutphin, was a year ahead of me in high school, and there were these two young guys that did the killing. That AM/PM shut down, and it's never been restarted. It's just an empty hulk now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when there's I'm surprised the Tops is still there.
Oh.
Yeah. That's something that was although they do have a tribute to the people that were murdered.
Yeah, like the Paul Bernardo house got torn down, and I think they tore down OJ's house and John Wayne Gacy's house got torn down also, and
Well, people do. People go on these tours.
Horror tours, yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, Greg and I, when we were in California, somebody had given him a book about places where people were killed, and we went to this one motel where I think it's the guy from that Stalag 13.
Bob Crane?
Bob Crane,
Oh.
yeah, where he was murdered. We went there. Greg wanted to go, so we went there.
I was thinking of the Night Stalker. I thought you were going to say the guy from the dating game.
No,
Because Richard Ramirez, he won on the dating game, but the woman said to a producer, "Do I have to go out with him?" And the producer said, "No, you don't," because he was so creepy. He was one of those guys that was so charismatic and creepy, like you could feel him looking at you.
well, that's smarmy.
Yeah, smarmy. That's right.
That's the word for that.
The house that was used in Breaking Bad, the owner of the house in 2025
Yeah.
is selling it because there's a scene in Breaking Bad where Walter White throws a pizza box on the roof.
Well, the pizza.
And he said, I can't tell you how many times fans of the series have come here and thrown pizza boxes
Oh
on my
my
roof.
God.
God.
I hope
That's,
it has pizza in it because then
That
you get some
has-
free food.
that has that I mean, people don't think, somebody's living here.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that
You know, it was
that-
interesting. I was in Texas at the time John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
really.
62 years ago. I didn't think you were old enough to.
I'm old enough. I was going to grade school.
I thought
My
you were
dad was in the Air Force.
at most
and,
10 years older than me, at most. I mean,
Just take the compliment, Celeste, and go.
Okay. Like I said, I can't change my age.
You do. I know you do have good skin, though.
Okay, thanks. But you were a military family, and there's two bases there. Kelly Air Force Base, where our family was, in Lackland Air Force Base, which is training. And we were in San Antonio. There's a elementary, middle school, and high school campus there, John F. Kennedy. And Kennedy was on his way from Dallas to San Antonio to dedicate that school. And, we were all getting fancied up and duded up and making arrangements to,
Wow.
for the address. And we got the word, which was, pretty horrifying for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
And everything was kind of shut down. And it's interesting because the world was getting a lot of news, but it doesn't seem like where we were on the base getting a lot of news. But I do know, which is interesting, and maybe another element to that the base itself was on high alert. Like
Before or after?
after.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
after.
November 22nd of 1963 was a Friday because that day at 5 p.m. he was supposed to be at a steak dinner because they got special dispensation from the Archbishop of Dallas to have meat on a Friday.
Yeah,
That's
well, he's
interesting because they're Catholic.
Yeah,
You know,
they're
the Kennedys were
Catholic. Yeah.
Catholic.
Yeah, and that's
And
why
that was a
he-
big
yeah.
deal. That was a big deal back in the 60s. And
Right.
yeah,
But,
what I heard, and I don't know how true this is that the reason that there was a restriction of meat on Fridays was because some 13th century pope had a brother-in-law who was a fishmonger, and so all of a sudden they changed this rule to be, I don't know, it sounds like a fantasy, but I read it in some book. I'm not sure which book, but I always thought that was a fascinating story.
Well,
He's trying to
yeah.
trying to throw some businesses with the way of his brother-in-law.
It's just like the Catholic Church was celibacy. There's nothing religious about it. You know that when you look at it, they're
Oh no, it's
Sort
just
of inheritance rights, and
Yeah,
property
yeah.
rights.
yeah, and they're retconning it. Like I was reading today, what was the thing about Stonewall Jackson? This was his birthday or the day he died.
They died.
That there's the lost cause, which is something that is pseudo-historic because it rose up later in the 20th century about The Civil War was not about states' rights to have slavery. It was about Northern aggression, and they were just trying to maintain their way of life. But it was the lost cause. So they were noble men that were just trying to maintain their life, totally whitewashing the whole gorilla in the room of slavery.
Well, that's what they're doing.
But that,
let me say, I'll add to that because I did a project on that, and I did it at the African American History Museum in Niagara Falls. It really, slavery was a part of it, but it was attached to the transference of commerce and taxes, because at the time, the southern states at that time were very successful agriculturally. And they were paying, I guess this is where the tariffs might come in. They were essentially the economic base for the northern states. And the big fight started when you had the discussion about slavery. It was about commerce, but it was really more about the South having to pay so much money to the North because the North wasn't as economically successful as the agricultural
Well, sure,
states.
you got people working for free. That's definitely going to give you an edge, an
And
economic
other
edge.
crops, right?
And
Rice,
farming
not
sucks.
about rice, but rice, cotton,
And
tobacco.
that's being picked for nothing. I mean,
Right. And they were paying into the government. So, the rebellion was like, well, wait a minute. Why are we paying all this money to the North when we could establish our own, lack of a better word, republic? And the discussions of secession started really based on money. And then, of course, you found that the money was attached to slaves, right? Because they were the mechanism for the agriculture.
But also, Lincoln had signed something about that expansionist thing, that no slavery west of the Mississippi or something like that. I'm not exactly.
Well, but that was sort of part of a bigger discussion because, Lincoln wasn't all about freeing the slaves for freedom's sake.
Yeah.
It was a strategic maneuver on behalf of the Union and still trying to capture those resources out of the Confederacy at that time. So there was that, and that was really, emancipation was a last-ditch effort, and it took 2 years for the South to buy into it. So, which they never did. I mean, even today.
I was
you tell
just
me
going
to get over the election. I tell you to get over the Civil War.
Yeah.
Only 300 years ago.
Absolutely.
well, there was a guy. There was a guy I knew that he taught in South Carolina, and he's from Hamburg, but he taught in South Carolina, and people were always saying, "Wow, if I lived 150 years ago, I'd have it made." He said, "No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. There'd be slaves, but you'd be working as hard as they were, but you'd be getting paid a pittance, but you'd be getting paid. But you're not. Only 1% of the white folks were the rich ones, and so
not everyone owned slaves. It was
But
only rich people owned slaves.
And also the people, all the other people that were working were scratching for whatever they had and getting their pittance. They're still getting ripped off just like everybody else by the rich people.
Yeah. Well,
but you had to know that the numbers were big at the time of the Civil War really got underway. There were 700,000 Africans in bondage. So I don't know how many little people or poor people, might be working as hard, but that's a big number to have in captivity working land.
It certainly is.
And that's the number. So.
I listened to a lecture on the Civil War, and during the question and answer session, somebody brought up that very point. They said, many Southerners maintain that it was about states' rights, not about slavery. And the professor said, I'll answer that with a simple story about what happened during the Civil War. The North contacted the South and said, we've been doing this war now for a few years. What do you say we exchange prisoners? South said, that sounds great. Let's do it. And the North said, we'd like it to be 1-to-1. We send you a colonel, you send us a colonel. We send you a private, you send us a private. South says, that sounds fine. So the North said, okay, here's a list of people who are, we'll start with privates. Here's a list of people who are all privates. You give us the list you're going to send back. And they did, and the North said, but there's none of our black soldiers are on this list. And the South said, you really think we're going to give you a black soldier in exchange for a white Confederate? The whole deal's off.
Wow.
I think that pretty much says it was about slavery.
Yeah, it was states' rights to have slaves.
Yeah.
That's what I
Right.
mean.
But the thing is,
Yeah.
the
Because that was
The
their
mo-
wealth train, right? If you tamper with the mechanisms that create and produce the agriculture, then you're tampering with the mechanisms of the wealth.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's really who the enemy has been since the
Yeah.
beginning of time.
And I often wonder, now those Southerner prisoners who were all excited that they were going to be sent back, and suddenly it got shut off, what did they think?
Yeah, well,
That's
maybe
a good
they
question.
maybe
I
they
don't
didn't
know.
know. Maybe they had no idea that this was in the works. I mean,
Because that could be a cognitive dissonance,
yeah,
you know?
because I mean
Yeah.
I can't see the upper echelons in the military consulting with these prisoners and saying, hey, we want to send you home. I mean,
Well, remember though that most of your senior officers were educated men that went to West Point. Like Jeb Stewart is reputed to have said, get their fustest with the mostest. No, he was an honors graduate at West Point. He said, get there first with the most men. And
Yeah.
so they weren't as barbaric as the locals, even the ones that were from there, but they were educated up in New York, and that was the thing. Like I told you this day, Robert E. Lee was asked to lead both sides, but he said he could not raise arms against Mother Virginia. That's why, but just
Yeah.
like Dwight D. Eisenhower in 52 was asked to be the Democratic and the Republicans, they both wanted him to be their candidate, but he went with the Republicans. That he asked somebody else who was but asked to lead both sides, and so Robert E. Lee, if he had the Northern architecture, he would have wiped up, just destroyed the South, and he didn't have anything. He didn't have anything from the South. You know what I mean? He was a
right.
he was a great guy who had nothing.
There was more
Yeah.
infrastructure
Yeah.
in the North.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's an
definitely.
interesting statistic about that. The South had X number of soldiers fighting for it. So let's give that a number. Let's say 300,000.
Okay.
In the North, they had 300,000 factories. Imagine that. They had the same number of factories so who's going to win in that situation?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that because that's where you see the people that if you are a Chechen or if you are a Confederate, you just want to maintain this border, and if you're trying to make an attack here, you will lose. You will lose. That's why Gettysburg was such a huge bloody mess. That if you just try to maintain where you are, that's where it's at. But when you try to go beyond those borders, that's a formula for failure, and that's military history. That people that are doing it for like subsistence, like the Chechens, they don't want any more area. They just want their point here, and that's why the Ukrainians are putting up such a fight. Because the Russians are trying to take
Yeah,
the land,
they're-
and that's what it is. When you are the aggressor, you are functionally in a weaker position. That's why they have to overload and use so much force. Use the Powell doctrine that either make peace with us or we
Yeah.
will demolish you.
There's something happening now between India and Pakistan.
You know what's the irony though? They're both nukes, but India and Pakistan has no effect on our geopolitical. That's been for the past 40 years, because that's the thing that was said, that where would nukes have a problem? Europe, yes. North America, yes. Asia, yes.
What is what?
That's an old war.
Yeah.
India and
Yeah.
Pakistan
Yeah,
have been
but-
enemies for
but-
hundreds of years.
Right, but there's some new aggression happened recently.
Yeah.
With
Yes,
tours,
yes,
of
they're
course, yeah.
dropping
Yeah.
bombs on
Yeah.
one
But the
another.
thing is-
Problem there is Iran.
Yeah, with nuclear weapons, it depending on the strength and the accuracy of these weapons, and who knows what kind of weapons that they have. So we don't know. It could affect the entire world.
Well, that we could
I
also
would
be struck by
imagine it
lightning.
would.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, no, I know.
what they have and where they are. It doesn't. There's nothing we need from Pakistan or from
But
India.
you're forgetting that it's one world. Like we have one world. It's not like there's not like walls in between the countries that go up to outer space. We are living on one planet, and anything that happens. I mean, look at the in China, they're using coal. That's affecting us.
Yeah. And when the Japanese had the nuclear facility meltdown,
Fukushima.
people in California were warned that the clouds.
Yeah. So this is a problem when we think in pieces when it's not pieces. Those are artificial. Those are artificial
Fragments,
lines that
yeah.
are drawn. Like Trump
It's
says.
like how people
that
think-
line on top there.
Paula, it was like how we were talking about earlier of the concept of God and God being all one and everything all together.
Yeah,
And then you have these other corrupted versions where everything's fragmented and fake walls and fake illusions and stuff.
Well,
That's-
everything. This is. I mean, not that it hasn't been going on since the beginning of time, but we tend to think in terms of pieces, chunks, and it's not. It's one thing. We live on this earth, and it's one thing, and it's all separation is artificial.
Well, I wouldn't write off India either. I can't speak much for Pakistan, but I certainly wouldn't write off India as absent of trade and exports from trade with the United States. I mean, we do get. I mean, their economy is kind of booming, thanks to us. And in addition to some agricultural products, we do get some technology products. We do get medical equipment, medical appliances.
The medical equipment comes from Pakistan because that was always the thing. The good stuff came from Germany and the crap came from Pakistan. Period. I mean, if they were disposable, they were from Pakistan. That was what we always noticed. And because somebody pointed that out to me, they said, look at the equipment. If it's German, it'll go in the autoclave. If it's Pakistan, it goes in the trash.
Well, but I'm talking about India. I don't have any real information on
Like what
Pakistan.
medical
I guess
stuff?
I would need to research.
What they make meds there, or do they make? Well, I don't even know any
No,
equipment.
they do pharmaceuticals. They do medical equipment. They do chemicals.
Methyl isocyanate.
I mean, well, I think we should electronic thing. I mean, if you look at India, and I haven't looked at Pakistan, so I cannot respond to that. But I do know that we have trade relationships with India, and India is on that list of countries that the president wants to.
Well, we'll see what happens after this
Yeah.
90-day pause, and we'll see if they're already talking about the prices going up on. I mean, things like Barbie dolls. I mean, they're made in China. And
I was looking at things on the Amazon site just to see what things are going for, and it seems like in the past week things keep going up a little bit on items. From what they were a couple weeks ago.
I don't know. I don't do that much shopping on Amazon.
Well, they're going up little by little, and not only that, they're getting smaller and smaller. So
right, the sizes.
Some people coined the phrase shrinkflation.
Yeah.
And I guess I can roll with that because I've witnessed it out there. I'm getting crackers for the L's now, and not for me. So
I know the pasta. A pound of pasta is now 12 ounces.
Well, or it's like ice cream. Ice cream has been a half gallon in forever. Now it's smaller and smaller for the same price. Because I noticed this. Turkey Hill, if it's vanilla, it's ice cream. But if it's like cherry vanilla, it's frozen dairy treat.
Ice milk. Yeah.
And smaller size rolls, toilet paper.
Yeah.
Paper towels.
Everything.
Even like fast food stuff.
And bags of all my flaming hot
burgers are all
chips.
smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's changing. It's
so.
Does anybody have an opinion on who Kashmir should be part of, India or Pakistan?
This is a parallel I'm going to make, Richard. This is not a non sequitur, but this is a parallel. You ever see a New York State police officer? What color are their uniforms? They're gray. Do you know why they're gray? Because they're woven with white and black fibers. And that's what Kashmir is the people are that closely together. You can't take them apart. You can't take them apart. They're like Velcro that can't be unvelcroed. So I don't even know who should have it because somebody's going to be angry.
I have an opinion on that.
Okay, go ahead.
So when India was partitioned, you know, India, Pakistan, in between them was this valley called Kashmir.
I like
And-
the song.
Yeah.
And then the question came up, well, does Kashmir belong to Pakistan or India? And they couldn't decide. Pakistan wanted it, India wanted it. So they said, well, we'll put this off for the future. And then they decided periodically to revisit it. Finally, somebody said, let's put it up to a vote. Let the people of Kashmir vote who they want to join. How do you think the vote came out?
I think 50-50.
No, they voted that they wanted to be part of Pakistan. And you know what India said?
Screw you.
The vote was rigged.
Oh,
When I found that out, I said, I think Pakistan has a good case here.
But so is Kashmir, what is the main religion of Kashmir? Because that's a big thing in India, between India and Pakistan. The religious affiliation. So I think that if they are going with Pakistan, maybe are they Islamic?
Yeah, I'll bet you dollars to donuts they're Muslim because Pakistan was made as the Muslim homeland. But the interesting thing is the largest Muslim country in the world is Indonesia. But do you know who has the largest Muslim population? India, even though it's a minority religion. There are, in the minority,
There's so many people there. You know?
300 million.
In Kashmir,
Yes.
68.3% are Muslims.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
And that probably affected the vote.
yeah. So that I can understand that because religion is a very important aspect of their lives, but I still like that song.
yeah.
What's
Research
the
Well,
Searching by
And we
Public
had to,
Image Limited.
appreciate
No.
that on the other side is
Led
India,
Zeppelin.
primarily Hindu.
Yeah.
And what they don't talk about is there's also a portion of that geography and why there could be some additional strange interests is China. When you look at the geography
Uh-huh.
of it all, that they could get involved.
Yeah, and southern India is Christian. There's they're a real mixed bag there. It's
but not enough to make a difference. You know, the
southern India is very Christian. They were Christianized for
well, speaking of back in 1850s, the one thing you can always count on is the white man is the devil. It doesn't matter where you go, but the white man, like every nation in the Pacific, has a term like Guaylo or Pakeha or
Pauli.
but isn't that true?
well, yeah, but that's why. No, the whole point is.
I mean, and
no,
the
whole,
way we've interacted with the rest of the
the whole
world.
point is the Enfield rifle. The Enfield rifle had a cartridge. You had to bite the end off and put it in. They had to lubricate it. They used animal fat. What did they use? Either pork or beef. If you're a Muslim soldier, you're not going to bite it. And if you're a Hindu, you're not going to bite it.
Yeah.
So the Enfield rifle was a failure because the white man thought he knew more than.
Oh, because right, ethnocentric bullshit. But I mean, I can put myself in the place of somebody being in this. I mean, I'm not saying that there's this noble savage idea, but I can say if I am living in a country and all of a sudden a bunch of white people come in and try to take this country away from me because we've got minerals and we've got oil, whatever, I'm not going to like them either.
Well, I'm going to tell you that if I could do anything in time, what I would do if I could go any time, about the year 500 or 700, I would go to North America and I would introduce disease. The reason why is they would develop immunity and the white man could never get a foothold because they estimate there was 100 million Native Americans in North America before the white man arrived. And then disease reduced them down to 4% of that.
Well, I have an interesting story to tell you. It was part of a project I did when I was taking archaeology. I took osteology, historical osteology.
Get to the bones.
Well, apparently, when the people came over to the New World, the natives here had some kind of skin condition, but the natives wore very little clothing, so they would have these sores on their bodies, and it was not a deadly disease, but because the people from Europe came over, and because the people, they covered everything, every inch of their bodies, except when they had sex. And then their penis would be exposed. And when this disease attached itself to the genitals, it was syphilis, and it was a killer. So the white people didn't bring syphilis from Europe. Syphilis was a very mild skin problem in the New World that turned into, it morphed into syphilis because of the genitalia and the moistness of the body in that area.
But also, you've heard of smallpox. Do you know what the great pox was? It was the syphilis, because those are the syphilitic lesions, and those lesions are full of the bacteria. All of them.
But the thing is, when, like I said, it morphed. It was a very mild disease when it was among the native population, and then when the white man came and was, either raping and pillaging, it attached itself to the genitals and it morphed, and that's how it became syphilis, and it killed like a third of Europe when
including
in its heyday.
Baudelaire.
When the new pope was announced, the crowd did not cheer. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
The crowd did not cheer until the Pope gave his acceptance speech and won the crowd over that way. But the press was intrigued, so they went amongst the crowd. How come nobody cheered? They said, well, we knew that he was an American, and, you Americans have a reputation for just taking things over.
Well, that was the opposition in the College of Cardinals for all these years, why they didn't have an American pope before. And this guy spent more of his life in Peru than he did in the U.S.
Well, this guy, he just started tweeting this year, apparently, and all of his tweets are liberal.
Oh, yeah.
I heard he had some old ones that were like anti-gay that have been resurfacing.
I don't know about that. All I know is that he only started tweeting this year, and they're all like, one was against Vance, a couple were against Trump. So he's liberal-minded, and I like him.
Well, he was being groomed. He was being groomed by the Pope.
Yeah.
Because, spending all those low 20, 30, 40 years in South America and then bringing him back to be, administratively in charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And picking someone who...
like-minded. He's somebody...
Like-minded.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe not as liberal.
Yeah, but
like-minded.
Because you like that. You want somebody that thinks like you when you have somebody. I mean, you might want a little bit of dissent just because you want another way of looking at things, but
Well, he kind of distinguished himself by coming out in his colorful garb, right? Francis came out as plain and unassuming, but having to wear the traditional clothing of Pope. And this guy did come out in his red and gold.
Well, do you know who made Ratzinger's shoes? The guy before, Benedict, who made his shoes?
Nike.
Prada. Yeah, no, I mean, he was the richest poor guy around. So that's why Francis was the complete antithesis.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the whole point.
Who made his bag?
It doesn't
like
matter.
a Louis Vuitton.
No, the point is the shoes were Prada. They weren't. They weren't.
They weren't. Yeah, they weren't Pope shoes.
Designer Pope shoes.
Well, you remember when Francis was new, he called on the phone, and the guy asked who he was. He says Il Papa, and the guy said in Italian or in French, he said, "Yeah, and I'm Napoleon," because he made his own reservations, and he was all about being the average guy. Because that irritates all these old white men because they're used to living high on the hog. These princes of the church.
Right. There's nothing more. I can't think of than the presence of a good example. There's nothing more annoying than the presence of a good example. That's Mark Twain.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember a friend of mine saying, and I had to laugh. I didn't say a word, but I had to laugh. If the Vatican and the Pope are so interested in helping the poor, they could pawn some of them jewels they got over.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely that is absolutely. Jesus would be pissed. I'll tell you right now.
Well, I said if
Jesus or Yeshua.
If Jesus was alive today, he would be hanging out with the tranny hookers in Waikiki at night, where they're the most. The police actually protected the hookers from any of the freaks that would go around and abuse them. And I mean,
You've got to see the Sweet Jesus, the movie that we made about Jesus.
Yeah, I have it
coming
somewhere,
back.
but
Did we give you a copy
Yeah.
of it? Yeah,
On
okay.
beta?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, on beta.
but I don't even know where it is. So
Yeah.
Well, they have these wonderful television commercials now about He Gets Us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do appreciate those.
Yeah, I like those too. I think it's but because they're made by humans, I have to question their veracity of what they believe in. I don't know, because there's so much hatred with organized religion that it's just sad.
Well, I mean, you do have people that are trying to stretch. I mean, I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
I try and live my value the best I can. But there's fervor at milestones, and so I think the people who are making these kinds of commercials and creating these kinds of messages are trying to convey their fervor in a language that resonates.
Right.
Well, I saw a tweet that said, "I've never heard a better argument for atheism than American Christianity."
Wow.
Yeah. And in that
Well, American Christianity is false Christianity.
that too
really,
that
so.
too is dependent on I feel like the people that are truly faith-based people keep their mouth shut.
The true Christians were the
Yeah.
Gnostics.
Yeah,
and their beliefs are way different than what's forced on people now through the dogma.
So that would mean you agree with the quote from St. Francis: you should preach the gospel at all times, but only when absolutely necessary should you use words.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
You know what? I love St. Francis. I just think St. Francis is a great historical character. I like him so much. But the thing is, I bought this book because I wanted to read the things that St. Francis had to say, and it's just awful. It's always his notebooks. It's just awful, and I was so disappointed because I was hoping to pull out little gems like that. It's like.
I got Final Jeopardy this week on the one night because I said Columba, because St. Columba was reputed.
That was brilliant, because I don't think anybody knew that.
Well,
Yeah.
Columba's another term for dove. Because they said
Yeah.
that what did Moses, he released this animal three
The
times.
dove, yeah.
But it was Columba's another name for it. But, St. Columba in 554 reputedly saw the Loch Ness Monster. That's why I remembered that.
Oh,
Wow.
I didn't know either one of those things. So
Well, yeah. I knew it was dove, but I don't know Latin, so I
and,
I couldn't.
Well,
I couldn't
St. Columba
translate.
Christianized Scotland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was Columba's claim to fame. Just like St. Patrick got the snakes out of Ireland.
There were no snakes.
There was no snakes in the first place.
There were no
They-
snakes. They were
but
they were people that
Because
The
the
worshipped.
Romans
pagans,
fly,
they were
right?
There were
that symbolized-
people that worshipped the goddess, and a piece of iconography for the goddess has always been the kitchen snake.
yeah.
And so he was trying to wipe out the worship of the goddess, because that, of course, women.
turn it into a Christo-fascist patriarchy.
Oh, that's been so long that a friend of mine, who rests in peace in Forestville, she studied sort of feminine and religious history, and one of the things that she discovered in one of the things she was reading was that the sperm of the male was considered more valuable than the life of the woman, and that was right. And I thought that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of, but that was part of the reason.
There's a really, really good book, Celeste. It's called When God Was a Woman.
Oh,
And it covers all the pre-male religion stuff.
There's a here's a fact. Egg can fertilize egg. That's where you get virgin birth. But sperm can't fertilize sperm. Sperm really isn't truly necessary. You could somehow set up something with eggs, fertilizing eggs, and just have all females.
I need to
That-
see the science
That's
on
called
that.
parthenogenesis, and that's why you can see that in the Komodo dragons, and because those are lizards, those are reptiles, and what They first didn't know what was on the Y chromosome. The first thing they found was hairy ears. But seriously, you see these old guys with the
Color
hairy
blindness.
Yeah.
And the testis determining factor, the TDS, that was all that was on the Y chromosome. So you're absolutely right. Given nothing else, every fetus, even in the mammals, will develop as female.
Yeah.
But that's very important because you need that part. And we don't see parthenogenesis in anything above amphibians. So we don't see it in birds.
And you
we
know
don't see
why?
it
That's
in
true. That
mammals.
just was on the news the other day of a stingray who is now pregnant and had not had any contact with another
In a like a
another
aquarium.
male.
How about like the chimera birds, like that cardinal you see pictures of all the time? Half of it's red, the other half is brown, so it's a half male, half female bird.
Well, I don't know.
Merged.
Seeing
Mythical.
it, you'd have to really look
It's
at
real.
it. Yeah, but you'd have to like get a hold of it. You know what I mean? Like only visualizing it, you can only theorize. You know, it could be as simple as just a genetic goofball. It might not even be a chimera at all. What I'm saying is you need to get tissue is the issue.
So you want to grab the bird and you want to take actual samples from the bird and test those. That's what you're
That's the
saying.
way you can find out.
Yeah.
You can't make a determination just from looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing with the stingray now, is saying this female has made herself pregnant. So it goes to
Wow.
whatever, I can't say it, what did you say?
Parthenogenesis.
Parthenogenesis. Like
Parthenogenesis.
No move a muscle as the dead
Yes.
come home.
like the word part of it, parthenogenesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew Vanessa would like that.
Shriek back.
So all right. So wow, we've gotten.
I've got the record.
We didn't have like a breath in this, did we? Do you have something that you wanted to cover today? Because
Yeah, it's on the topic of what tourists find interesting.
oh, okay,
So, what does this song mean to you?
okay.
Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, singing cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh.
Seafood.
Nothing.
I think it's some kind of folk song.
Right?
Old folk, very old.
Yeah, very old, like maybe medieval.
It's from Ireland,
Okay.
and it's a folk song. And the government of Ireland
Yeah.
10 years ago said, you know, that folk song has made Ireland so famous throughout the world.
Right.
This is in Dublin.
Yeah.
We should put up a statue describing the woman in the song who was a fishmonger who went through the streets with her cart and sold her cockles and mussels that were alive.
Yeah.
Okay? They said, good idea. So they put up this statue of her with her cart. And art and tourists love this statue. In fact, they love it so much that there's a problem now that they're trying to decide what to do. So, Tom, could you put up the picture from VIN 9?
Oh. They're posing. Yeah, that was a little. I mean, maybe that was a bad choice of outfit.
Maybe it's accurate, though.
So,
Correct.
if you're on the
I'm sure, right. She probably looked like that, you know.
Well,
And it just took a silly man to decide
if
that's
you're,
the
if you're
thing
on
to
the
do.
Hey, women are doing it too.
Yeah. Well,
Have we seen pictures of ladies doing it?
Yeah.
Do we know that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Find one.
but the Irish especially were the ones that when you're crying in the church at a funeral, you're out screwing in the fields. You know that death brings life. That's why they would celebrate the life. They wouldn't mourn the death.
So if you're on the city council, what's your suggestion?
What did John Ashcroft do? Put a blue blue sheet on it.
no. I think
No.
I have a different opinion of this.
Okay.
That let the people. It's bringing people in to spend money in their town. Let them feel her up.
There are people on the council who are saying that.
Because it's a statue. For
Well,
cripe's sake, it's
great-
not. I mean, I know there's probably a deeper thing going on here, but it's getting people to want to come and see the statue. They're not real
They can
breasts.
come and see it. They don't have to touch it. You go to an art gallery in a museum every day. You don't put your hands all over the art and the sculpture.
That's true. That's true. But this is outdoor art, and isn't that?
No, we
isn't that
don't.
different?
We don't climb on stuff out in our.
No, it's
out.
true. You're right. But I mean, I guess
Oh, it's gross. I love you, Paula. I love you. That is gross.
Well,
Male or female.
here's
Well, I
here's
know
what
it doesn't give it's bad. It's a bad impulse. But the thing is, human beings have bad impulses. That's their impulse, and it shouldn't make them think that they can just do that to a live woman. You know, it's a statue.
Well, Grace O'Malley, the Irish pirate, was reputed to sail topless. So that's what she did. You know what I mean? That she didn't care.
And they weren't grabbing on her. I bet you chopped their friggin' hand off.
Exactly. Exactly.
so here's some suggestions they came up with the city council.
Yeah.
Number one is to put a rope,
Yeah.
like you have at the movie theaters.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
Yeah. Okay.
Then somebody said, let's put up a sign that said, show some respect. That didn't work. This is an
How about
interesting
a
one.
glass dome?
This is something interesting. Somebody said, let's put up a sign that says, touching this statue will bring you 7 years bad luck.
They could put some sort of electric fence type of thing on it somehow, so if you touch it, you get shocked.
Well, just like people literally bend over backwards to kiss the Blarney Stone that literally millions of people with all their gnarly lips have kissed. So,
Yeah.
Do you know?
That's that's
the-
true.
the-
And the Mona Lisa has that rail. I mean, you can take all kind of pictures
Yeah.
in there. You can't touch it, but
Yeah.
and they're 20 stacked deep.
Well-
Looking at the little picture of
it's only
Oscar-
like this big. You know,
Oscar Wilde in the Paris cemetery has a sphinx as a tombstone, and there are red lipstick all over it, and his penis is missing.
oh,
That was an interesting, anyway, it's covered. But I think Oscar Wilde would have kind of liked that. Not the penis missing, but the lipstick
the
marks.
penis mightier.
But the lip marks, I think that.
Well, it's like Tom Jones and Michael Bolton with the panties again.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Same thing. People.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think the artist should have used a little discretion with the outfit.
Yeah.
I'm sure that fishmonger. First of all, she was probably older than that, or
she had a bunch of kids, and that's why.
Right, and I'm not saying that people didn't expose their breasts in different periods of history. They did. Those corset things and the boobs were out.
And she had to feed her kids.
But the thing is, I think it was a bad choice of outfit.
Well,
Yeah.
But you
well,
know what? They
even
could make a glass dome and put it over the top.
not outdoors. No, because somebody would have to clean it constantly.
Well, look,
Oh,
sculpture's probably like an idealized version, so you're going to want something of young, attractive version, maybe not so much necessarily reality, but an idealization of
Good
what
point.
reality could
Yeah.
be.
So, for
I
example,
think they could put some sort of barrier around it, like they do other monuments that would discourage. Because right now it's being encouraged, right? All you have to do is arrest one or two of them, and that would.
What would the? Oh, I guess it would be just desecration of.
Yeah,
art.
it would be.
Yeah.
And say, I'll take your picture. There's a camera out here, and you're gonna get $500.
Yeah, ticket.
Yeah, but they're
get a
tourists,
ticket.
so these people are going to leave, and the next people aren't going to know about it. So they could either make a killing like a speed trap, or because just doing one or two isn't going to stop anything.
Well, if they're out there dragging them off, pretend like they're ice.
Well, it's not America though. There.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's not America. They would never do that there. But I'm just saying, I'm sure.
This isn't
if there was a way to do
Scotland.
something that they'll come up with
In
something.
Ireland, okay.
Yeah.
Sarah, shouldn't you not be doing that there, Sonny?
Yeah, there
Yeah.
seems like there should be some way
Someone
around.
suggested-
And I'd like to know if it's Irish tourists doing it or is it the Brits and the Americans doing it?
I think the population of Ireland is like 4 million. I don't think there are many
that's a good
Irish.
point. I
It's
think
even Irish people do.
I don't know that they are. I mean,
we're running out of time here, but that was an interesting question about the statue. I don't know. I guess my brain goes in all different directions at the same time.
It does. I mean, and to think about what you would do if you were on the city council.
Yeah.
Like someone suggested that you hire someone to stand by the statue
Yeah.
and tell people not to do it. But then someone else said, let's hire someone to stand by the statue with a sign. You could take a selfie for $20. Like
But-
when you take a selfie, you do that.
But no-
That's why people
yeah.
are doing it, for the
Yeah.
selfies.
Yeah, they could make a bundle of money, but I mean, statue prostitution. Now that's a subject we've never.
That's a band name.
All right, listen, it's time to go. Thank you, everybody. James, if you're going to be doing anything, let us know, will you please? Because I can't do it on Saturday, but any other
What's
day.
your favorite day? Tuesday or Thursday?
I like them both.
They're both the day of Thor.
What day are you free, Celeste? Tuesdays or Thursdays? Nights?
Thursdays tend to work better.
Okay, Thursday.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? Let me
Thursday.
say this. I'm doing a reading on Friday. Did James tell us where he's going to be? At Dog Ears Bookstore.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know, I haven't done that in years.
I know. I'd like to go. I'll see if I'll try.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're in Europe, and he asked me to read Friday.
All right. Okay. Well, this is it. I think. Are we off, Tom?
You know, James is going to tell us where he's going to be on Thursday.
Yeah, he's going to send me
Rafferty's Harlem Road.
Rafferty's
9 p.m.
on Harlem Road. Okay.
Rafferty's
Oh,
Harlem.
I know where that is. Okay.
I think he's going to be at Rafferty's on Harlem Road.
All right. I'll talk to you.
At 9
Okay.
p.m.